Hi, it's Maija here with a library book haul. This is now my third week at work, so I'm still getting pretty tired in the evenings, so I haven't been able to film, but it's getting better. I'm getting more energetic. But I thought I'd film a library haul since these are quite easy videos to film, so I didn't need to prepare over much for this. So I have a bunch of books and a bunch of comics. You might remember at the start of the year I said I wouldn't be borrowing books from the library that much, about one book per month and then a couple of comics, but that has now been thrown out of the window. I have a lot of stuff borrowed, and after I have returned this or whatever, I will return back to reading my own books. But for now I will cut myself some slack and I will show you the huge stack of books that I have. So these first two books are my biggest priority since they have holes on them at the library, so I need to return them at the due date. And I just started yesterday The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, and this is a fantasy book that is based on Russian fairy tales and Vasilisa the Beautiful. Specifically, I think I don't know anything else about this except that it is quite widely loved on Booktube and it is nominated for the Booktube SFF Awards in the debut novel category, I believe. And this needs to go back to the library on Thursday this week, so I really need to focus on this one and getting this one read before I start any of the other books. My second priority book is the science fiction novel Before Mars by Emma Newman, and this is the third in her Planetfall series. The first one was called Planetfall and the second one was called After Atlas, and I really enjoyed both of them. I like how Emma Newman has this psychological aspect in all of these books in this series of hers, and the main characters are very three-dimensional and very interesting characters. So this one, I don't really know a lot about the plot. I don't really want to know. I know that it is set on Mars. So then I have a bunch of other books that I just borrowed because I felt like it, and I'm not quite sure if I will prioritize them, if I will actually read them before I return them to the library, but they don't have holes on them, so I will be able to renew them if I don't get to them. The first of those is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames, another one of the Booktube SFF Award nominees in the debut novel category, and I've been interested in this one since it's a funny fantasy novel, so it's a comic fantasy novel, and this one is about a group of I believe mercenaries that were this band when they were younger, mercenary band, and now they are getting back together to go rescue someone, I believe. And in this world, the mercenaries are sort of treated as celebrities and also almost akin to rock bands. So like I said, the boys are back in town. It's time to get the band back together. And I wasn't sure if I was going to read this, but then I saw Reija from Bo Finkins. She had done fan art of one of the characters that sort of looked like an elf character, and I didn't know there were elves or whatever that race was in this, so I have been wanting to read a fantasy book with elves for a while now, so I wanted to check this one out. I only thought there would be like humans and monsters, but if there are like other fantasy races in this, I want to check it out. Then I have a couple of books that I also borrowed last year, but I didn't get to reading them then, and the first that I have is The Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb. And this book, one of the Rainwild Chronicles, set in the same area as the Live Ship Traders books were set in, sort of, well, with some of the same characters at least. And I'm really looking forward to reading this so that I can get to the newest books of Robin Hobb's. Then I have an N.K. Jemisin. I have The Broken Kingdoms, which is the second book in her Inheritance trilogy. I read the first book quite a while ago now, but I think they work separately, so I don't need to remember that much about it. This one follows completely different characters than the first one. The first one was about this woman who had to go to the capital and to the palace because she was the granddaughter of the king, and she got tangled into this inheritance mess, hence the Inheritance trilogy. And also there were a lot of guard characters who were really interesting, so I'm really interested to see who is the main character in this one, if there are any recurring characters, and how the gods feature in all of this after the events of the first book. And then completely on a whim, I also borrowed Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I haven't read anything from Leigh Bardugo before, so this is a young adult fantasy novel. I think it's also inspired by Russian fairy tales. I don't know anything about it except there's magic. The main character is called Alina, and then there's someone called the Darkling. It's been around Booktube for many years now, and I still don't know anything about the plot. Then I have a Finnish horror book, and this is Yö ei saa tulla by Tiina Raivaara. And I saw the third book, I believe it's a trilogy or a series, and I saw the third book, and it looked like a bit like a vampire book. I don't believe these are vampire books, but it raised my interest. And then I checked it on Goodreads and saw that it was the third in a loose trilogy. And this is the first book, so I borrowed this because it was on a shelf at the library. And it's quite funny because this is inspired by E.T.A. Hoffmann's The Sandman. And I hadn't heard of E.T.A. Hoffmann or The Sandman before until a couple of months ago. I read Sofia Samatar's short fiction collection Tender. And there was a story that I really liked. And I didn't quite understand everything about it, but it was really, really fascinating. And it was based on the same story, The Sandman. And that gave me the drive to go and find The Sandman and read that. And I found it and I read it. It was quite a short old horror story. And now I think I will go back and read the story from Tender again. But I found it interesting because I hadn't heard of that story or that author before. And suddenly I found 2 works that were inspired by that. I also have a couple of Moomin books by Tove Jansson. These are children's classics from Finland, and I'm doing a reread, and I borrowed all the ones that I have yet to reread. And I have first Muumipappa ja Meri. I don't know what this is called in England. In English, Muumipappa and the Sea is what it means, so I don't know what it's called. Then I also have the sort of final one, Muumilaakson marraskuu, which is Moomin Valley in November. Again, I don't know what the English title is. So those are the last 2 that I have left. And then I also borrowed this one that I haven't read before because it took quite a while for it to be translated into Finnish. This is sort of the first Moomin book, but it's more of a novella, and it's Moomins and the Great Flood, Muumit ja suuri tuhotulva. And this one is, as you can see, quite different looking than these other ones. This one wasn't read to me as a kid and I haven't read it before, but it's sort of the first Moomin story, even though most people start from the sort of the second book. Then I also have a bunch of comics out, and most of them are the Full Metal Alchemist volumes 3 to 9. These are by Hiromu Arakawa, and I have already read 3 to 8, so I only have 9 left to read. Full Metal Alchemist is a fantasy manga series, and it's about these couple of brothers who broke the taboo and tried to use alchemy to bring their mother back to life. So the taboo is that you don't do alchemy with humans. In the attempt, they lost parts of their bodies. The younger brother lost the whole of his body, and he is now tied into this suit of armor that is empty, but his soul lives in it. And the older brother, Edward, lost 1 arm and 1 leg, and he has these mechanical replacements. And they're traveling around the world trying to find the Philosopher's Stone, which could be able to emphasize their powers and restore their bodies. Then I borrowed a series that I have read quite a while ago, so this is a reread. And this is Bone by Jeff Smith. It's called Luupäät, so boneheads in Finnish. And this one has the first trilogy, so the first 3 volumes. And then I also borrowed the 4th volume separately. There are, I believe, 9 volumes. I think it was 9 volumes. And this is sort of a big epic fantasy saga, but with these cartoon characters. And there are other characters who look human, and they interact with these, so it's quite a fun mix that some of them look like these sort of weird white cartoony blobs, and then there are also people. This is a new release. It is colored, and I don't know what I feel about that because I read these in black and white. This older one is in black and white, and I prefer the black and white editions. But that's the reason why I borrowed these 2, so I can sort of contrast and compare. But I've really been wanting to reread this series since I really liked it. It's quite funny, but also surprisingly dark at the end. So I want to reread it and see how I feel about it now. Sorry if I'm like glaringly white, but the sun is doing its thing and messing with my brightness settings and white balance. But anyway, the last thing that I have out from the library is Black Bolt Volume 1 Hard Time by Saladin Ahmed and Christian Ward. This is a new story about an inhuman character from Marvel called Black Bolt. And I don't know much about him. I have seen him in sort of side roles in the background of a couple of other comics, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what Saladin Ahmed does with him. The King of the Inhumans has been imprisoned, is what it says on the back. This was nominated for a Hugo Award, which is why I picked it up. So that was my huge library haul. I'm really glad that I got the time to film again, but now I actually have to go and get ready to leave for work. But let me know in the comments how you felt about any of these books, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!